All right, awesome. People are, oh, somebody's in Vancouver. Where's everyone else from? Throw it right in the chat. Love to see where people are coming in from today. Ooh, LA, got Canada, Texas, Michigan, London, Ontario, Northern Kentucky, Dubai, Alberta, Iowa. Wow, all over the place. San Diego, California. I don't know if you got affected by those storms, but I think they were pretty hefty out there. All right, Westport, David. How you doing, David? From Westport, Connecticut. Oh, hey, Nicole from Seattle. Awesome. New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania. Wow. All over the place you guys are coming from. Well, I'm super, super excited for you to be here. So really excited for this hour today, an hour tomorrow, and an hour on Thursday. Really excited to start talking about getting workflow right in 24, man. All right, Jim's from Rhode Island. I love Rhode Island. Utah, Vancouver, lots of Vancouver people. That's awesome. So happy to see you here today. Excited to just get into this and start talking about workflow in 2024. As we go through this presentation, I just want you to keep in mind, feel free to either in the Q&A box or in the chat to ask questions as we're going. If you have any, I know Tosin will be able to monitor that for me, and we'll check in probably halfway, or sometimes I like to just look in the chat and make comments as I'm going. So we're going to get right into this here today. What the heck is our agenda? Well, we're talking a little bit about what to expect out of this 3-day challenge. And it's really, I'm all about competition. So those of you who may not have met me before, I'm all about competition. So I want you to compete with yourself in this webinar today to challenge you to think about your workflow and processes. So we're going to talk about how to maximize the challenge for you. We're going to talk about why tax season feels overwhelming. And those are for not just tax preparers, folks. This is anyone involved in the accounting process. And why does it feel overwhelming? We'll talk about it. The mind shift needed to prevent a draining tax season. I'm going to give you some little nuggets of things to help you maneuver as you go through the tax season, and things that you should be considering while you are going through the tax season. We're going to see what systemized tasks and workflows look like. I've got a couple of my screenshots from the way that we handle a couple of things. We can't, obviously, I'm not going to demo the whole thing today because that doesn't make sense. But really what our goal is to make sure we nail down the workflow process. Some of you may have already done that, but you've not implemented a tool that encompasses that workflow. And sometimes it can be challenging to determine a workflow, what works really good. And so we're going to talk about that as well, and hopefully get some Q&A as we go through here, answer your questions on anything we can do to help you improve your processes as we go over the next couple of months, which, by the way, I have renamed tax season. It's not called tax season anymore. It is actually softball season, in which we do taxes. If you're a baseball fan, it's baseball in which we do taxes. And for those of you who love March Madness, it is basketball March Madness in which we do taxes. So we just need to change our mindset. But my name is Dawn Brolin. I'm a certified public accountant, a certified fraud examiner out of Windham, Connecticut. Competitive cheer season, Debbie, you know it, girl. So we're not talking tax season anymore. We're going to put that aside, because what we're going to do is focus on nailing down our workflow so that this season isn't a season anymore. It's just like what we're doing, right? I'm the founder of Team Brolin and the author of the Designated Motivator and the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals. I'm also a volunteer college softball coach at my local school here, and we're in practice sessions now, and I love it. My back hurts. I think I hit 700 balls on Sunday, but we'll get back in shape there. I'm also the CEO of Powerful Accounting Inc. out of Windham, Connecticut. So I do what you do. Okay. I do the things you do. And so I've just changed a lot of my workflow and my tools, and we're going to talk about technology to allow me to be able to go to preseason in Arizona in the week before the March 15th deadline. I'm going. I don't care. I've made my workflow. I've made my boundaries and my demands of my clients, which allow me to do something like that. I'm also the president of the Accounting Cornerstone Foundation, in which we send people to in-person learning who have never been before, because my life changed when I started meeting all you, Debbie, you're one of them, all these great, amazing people that I've met over the year. And Angela's here. Love you, Angela. And so, we're really just trying to change the industry through bringing people to in-person learning, getting to know other practitioners so we can all help each other because we're in this together. And I'm on some tax councils and stuff like that. So excited to be here though, because really at the end of the day, and we'll start with, we're going to talk about the challenges during tax season, but let's just think for a second, thinking about what you want to get out of today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Okay. What do you want to get out of this? This is not just another webinar, folks. This is not just another webinar series. This is a webinar series that could change your practice for the rest of your life. To change the way things are not going the way they should be going. It is time now to make a change in your firm. And that's what I want you to do, is to spend these 3 hours of time that you are investing. And yep, I still do use a notebook sometimes. Take notes. Pick out little nuggets that you think can help change the direction of your practice, really, because it's all about the mindset. How are you going to approach this season? You're going to do the same thing you've been doing year after year after year? Or is this a year of change? I always think 2024 is the year. This is the year to make the changes within your systems and your process so that you can go competitive cheer and be able to go to those competitions and watch those kids, those athletes doing their thing, whatever it is for you. So that's why we want to change that mindset, because as we know, we're going to go ahead. Yes. How to practically implement and get systems in place that will be effective from the start. Yes. And that's why today, as we think through everything we talk about, there's a process to define it. So thinking about challenges during tax season, tax season, obviously as we know, this intense workload, tight deadlines put significant pressure on accounting firms. We know that. This is something that is not new to us. But what can be new to us is that we change the way we operate and the way we handle our workflow. And by the way, taking charge of our practice. We have let clients determine, client expectations. They want to set the expectations for us. And I decided a couple of years ago, whoa, I need to be in charge of everything that's happening. So we're talking about tight deadlines, the demand for accuracy, timeliness, increased client expectations. The client are expecting us to, we're their tax preparers, and we should be their advisors, and we should be their bookkeepers, and we should be their confidant to help them as they grow their business. If we change that mindset of how we approach our clients and that workload, and I'm specifically talking about businesses, okay? Individuals are a different story. We're talking about anybody with a Schedule C, Schedule E, S Corp, C Corp, partnership, whatever, sole prop, whatever it may be, these client expectations that they expect us to handle all of their things. And honestly, at the end of the day, for us, we care more than they do in some cases, where we're chasing them for information and trying to keep them compliant. And so the clients set those expectations, and then we follow and abide by them rather than the other way around. Hey, client, this is what I expect of you. This is your business, by the way, not mine. I have my own to deal with. So I need your participation. So we know those client expectations. We've got to shift that mindset from it should be the accountant expectations. And we tell them what's expected of us. We know that we struggle with the volume of data to process. Those kind of things, like grappling with a surge in the volume of financial data to process. The complexities, they add Venmo, then they add Cash App, then they add this thing. Now they're using PayPal to pay this one person. And they're all over the place, right? So because that volume and change that happens, regulatory changes, complex regulatory changes like this bill that we're waiting to go through. What is our process for all of these things that are coming across our desk through our email, through our text, through our social media? We know that volume of data is a lot. So you know what you have to do? You've got to set some boundaries. Setting some boundaries, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Heightened client interactions. IRS notices that are coming out a lot more. They've just unleashed, they just flipped the switch, and the IRS notices are coming out like crazy. The nature of tax laws, they're making changes in the middle of tax season. Like right now, we're still just waiting to see if 100% bonus depreciation comes back, what of the child tax credits refundable and not. So we're trying to handle all of these things. And I think, Buck, a really good point to what you said about getting systems in place that will be effective from the start. the more we can quiet the noise through process. Like, this is our process. We have a tax workflow process. We have a bookkeeping workflow process. If we get out of that process and start doing other things and making exceptions to our process, all of these stressful things of volume of data and tight deadlines becomes a train wreck for us. And we become very frustrated and concerned that we're not going to be able to get all the work done, for instance. And so as firms, we're striving to meet those client needs and regulatory requirements. It is obvious that we have to have a proactive and strategic approach. And that's essential to manage the challenges, but also turn those challenges into opportunities for growth and improvement. And that's what we're trying to do here. As we look through, having a proactive approach is critical. And I'm going to walk you through it a little bit. A really great process that we have from a tax planning perspective. I put together a really great process. There's 3 of us that are involved in the process. We got to be able to communicate with each other. And it's got to be because we don't want to waste time in lack of data or information between each other, like maybe an email string about the project or about the tax planning, or notes from one of the tax planners to the one who's going to deliver the tax information to the client. So those types of things, we've got to nail those down because of these challenges. These are not new challenges, folks. We know that. But the more we can standardize and make process and have systems in place, we're going to minimize the challenges you're seeing here. And firms are moving towards being more proactive. I'm seeing it. We're doing it for sure here at Powerful Accounting, is moving more towards that proactive approach. But I can't be proactive unless my systems are nailed down. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm just going to decide I'm going to do this roofing job, and I'm just going to go run to the house to do this roofing job. But I didn't bring any shovels, and I didn't bring any nails with me or anything like that. That's what we're doing. If we decide to become proactive, we don't have the tools in place or the systems in place. That roof is never going to get done. Just like the client work is never going to get done. And it's really critical. Yes, practical implementation, getting systems in place as easily as possible. And one of the key things to that is defining, and this is where I started, the things that were broken. I needed to figure out what parts of my processes were broken. And that's something that I'm going to encourage you guys, and the expectation over the next few days is think about, after this, what are you going to do about it? And that's, to me, the big thing. I'm all about do something about it. And to keep things really simple, when a process is broken. For example, if I'm onboarding a new tax client, if I have someone, maybe I'm out of the grocery store and this happens for me, maybe not for you, and they'll be like, "Oh, Dawn, hey, you know what? I was thinking about coming to you for my taxes this year. Are you taking on new clients?" And here's the process. If I don't say to that client or that potential client, "Here is Tracy's number at my firm, give Tracy a call. She'll onboard you the way our process works. She's going to ask for a prior year tax return. She's going to set you up in SmartVault. She's going to set you up in our systems. We'll send you a quote," so on and so forth. So that's a great process. The way we have this process, and here's where Dawn Brolin historically would break it. This is a really good example. "Hey, yeah, John, I'd love to do your tax return. That's awesome. Glad you're coming to us. You know what? Just what's your cell phone number? Let's exchange numbers. I'll be back in the office in an hour after I'm done grocery shopping, and I'll just shoot you a text, and then, maybe you can just come on over and bring me the tax return." Do you see how I just broke my own process? So your first step is to determine and define the process, because you can go get a practice management tool and you can try to set the thing up. If you've never sat down and defined your process, implementing, not going to work. Kathy, don't you dare ever do it again, sister. I'm with you. I sit there and I'll go, "Oh, you got to call Tracy. Oh, you have to call Tracy," because if I don't do that, I never get back to them. I just don't, not on purpose, because I get back here in between the grocery store and my office, 7 things have happened. And I forgot that I've got John, and now John's 10 texts deep, and I don't even remember that I had his phone number. So step 1 is define those processes, right? So having that positive, Jenny, how to teach your partner not to do those things. Oh my goodness. Yeah. If you're with partners, that's wicked, right? So really awesome that, yeah, you got to get that partner there, man. Efficiency and consistency, Susan, you're right, with increased security, 100%. So positive and proactive mindset transform challenges into opportunities for growth. So for you, the first thing you need to do once you define those processes, you're going to find out as you move forward with that client, right? Having that mindset and having that positivity, having that process where they're like, oh, that was an easy process. Oh, I just called Tracy. Tracy has her job. She knew what to do, right? So as we're moving forward with that mindset, that's where yours has to change. Me, Susan, Jenny, that's what I had to change, right? I had to change the way I approached taking on new clients. It sounds stupid, but it's true, right? When there's so much going on, right? Being able to take challenges and turning them into opportunities is important. So let's say we do onboard the client and now we're like, oh, they're an S corporation. Oh, that process, we got to click on S corporation compliance. Now, I have onboarded this client. I've looked at her S corp tax return, and I see that she has paying compensation of the tune of $25,000, which I had someone with a flow through of 150. That's an opportunity for me to say to her, or say to the client, listen, you're not in compliance, because my process, again, we're back to process, is when I look at a tax return, I'm not just looking at it to price it. I'm looking at the tax return to find the opportunity. And for bookkeepers, this is a great one for you. I would encourage you in your process, when you've finished the books up, you're like, I crushed it. These books are solid. I'm killing it. And then the tax return's prepared. It's not a bad idea to double check to make sure the balance sheet ties out. I have a client that just came to us for 3 years. We reviewed 3 years of their tax returns, and the books matched the tax return, but the books had about a $500,000 checking account that hadn't been reconciled since 2019. The tax practitioner relied on the QuickBooks file where no one was doing the bookkeeping because nothing was reconciled, but he still was preparing a tax return. So you see the opportunity. If your process is, if you're a bookkeeper, I do the books, but then when the tax return is done, I get a copy of it and I look at it. Well, Dawn, I don't know how to do taxes. How do I know how to read a tax return? It would be awesome for you to start to learn what the result is of your work. Where does it end up on the tax return? Not because you want to be a tax preparer, but now you've given bigger value to your bookkeeping client to say, yep, I double checked your tax return matches with your books. Yep, the accountant did post accumulated depreciation for you. I see the depreciation in the books, and all matches out and ties out. There's an opportunity for growth. Okay. So we know that we're doing that. So think about the common stressors during this season in which we do taxes, is what I'm calling it, highlighting the typical challenges accountants face. So as you're going through the next couple months, I want you to be documenting, not just you, but unless you're a sole prop, if you're only on your own, but if you even have a team, what we do in our practice management tool, we use Financial Sense, we use Powerful Accounting as a client, and we set up a job. We set up a job in there that says tax season evaluations. And what we'll do is we'll go in and add tasks to that workflow, that particular job that's an internal job. And when we find that a job is like a process is broken, like we can't do it this way again next year, like something here is broken, we put notes in there as we go through the 2 months of the busy part. I call it productive, but as we go through this. So you should have, if you don't have a workflow management tool implemented yet, you can use one of these guys in the meantime. Documenting processes that are working and documenting processes that aren't working. And by the way, or you can use something like rev.com. It's an app on my phone. I do a lot of recording, right? So what I do, Diane, is I create a job in Financial Sense called tax season. I think we do 2024 tax season notes and changes. And that's the name of the job. And all of us here at Powerful Accounting have access to that job. And what we'll do is, as we're going through, let's just say, we had one process of having somebody get us some, I don't know, something happens within, our processes are really good. So we've really revamped them over the last 5 years. And so we don't, our notes are getting less and less, but I make it a work, and then we put tasks. So I'll add a task. And the reason why we put a task in there is because now that's something we need to fix. We can assign it to someone. So I'm not always coming up with the solutions on the process. Tracy knows what process is broken on her end. She's like, I can't do it this way. We need to do something a different way. So she'll go in and she'll put a task in, because then at the end of the next 2 months, we'll sit down as a team and we'll go through that job and say, okay, Tracy, you were struggling with something with DocuSign. Let's pretend you were struggling with something with DocuSign. What was it? Well, or the organizer, maybe our organizer, we needed another couple of fields in the organizer that we found was frustrating. We're not going to change it mid-season because we're already cranking. But hey, we need to add this to next year's organizer, these 2 questions or whatever it may be. And so now someone has to go to the organizer and make the change. So it's a task that's assigned to someone. So as we go through, we know the hard things to start to prompt the need for change, acknowledge the hard things. And that's where I said we keep track of that stuff in a job, because we know we're going to have challenges. We always do. If there's a particular client, here's another example. If there's a particular client that we just like, they were just really painful to work with, we don't want to work with them again next year. We'll put a note in there, X, Y, and Z, we need to get rid of them. And here's why, or whatever. Now we've got it documented that, okay, I didn't know Tracy was having these challenges with that person, because we don't necessarily communicate with that unless it's like something where they're being mean to her, then we address it immediately. But if it's something we need to deal with after the tax season, then that's what we do. So thinking about that positive and proactive mindset. So now we're feeling overwhelmed. We've got an overwhelmed person at a game here. We thought the game would be really fun. So the reasons you're feeling overwhelmed is because there's a lack of systemized tasks and processes. Now, you may have some, but there may be things that the systems and processes that you're using now that are killing you. Maybe you're not, think like drawbacks of manual processes. If there's anything you're doing still manually that you could solve with a technology, then let's do that. Inefficient communication, if we're not having communication in a great way, where we want to have, for us, the chat, I'll call it the chat feature, but the messaging feature within Financial Sense, where if I'm working on a tax plan, I have a question for Keith. I'm like, hey Keith, I'm struggling with this thing. Can you pop into the return, into the plan and make an adjustment for me or whatever? All the history of our communications right in there. Now, if we were texting each other, that's not a great process. Why is that not a good process? Because it's not documented for Tracy or for Nicole or Lisa, another tax preparer who needs to take a look at that. Maybe we need to pull her in for something. Now we just talked about it. So now I'm like, oh, that's right. I think I text you, Keith. Why am I texting Keith something that should be documented in a permanent place where other people can see the communications? That's my point, right? So we think about, we get overwhelmed. I agree with you, Kathy, 100%. Just thinking about creating the rest of the systemizing processes. And this is the approach I took. We want to take things one step at a time. You may want to start out with saying, these are my really good processes. These are nailed down. Again, using a tool like Rev, R-E-V, that's just me. There's a ton of them out there where you talk through the process. So you just record your voice, you talk through the process. This is my onboarding process. I could take Rev and go, new client call, refer them to Tracy. Tracy onboards them, sets them up a Smart Vault folder, has them upload their prior year tax returns. I assign in a calendar for Dawn to do a quote. I put the link to Smart Vault right in the calendar. I do this, I do that. And I walk through that whole process, but that's a great process. Just record it in a voice and then transcribe it. So then you move on to those things where it's like, oh my goodness, getting a 2848 from a client where they have to wet signature. You can't send it electronically for e-signature. And you know what they do? They still do it. They still do it. Yes, you could do that. Yes, I want to just answer that chat. Yes, you could do it in notes on your iPhone or dictation in MS Word. It doesn't matter what tool you use, but it's a great way to record your processes so you're not writing them or typing them and not being so overwhelmed. So sitting down and identifying, first of all, what processes do you have? What processes do you need? So if you need a great client onboarding process, whether you're in bookkeeping or tax or whatever, IRS resolution, it doesn't matter, right? Yes, just do it. You got it. So as we think through that, we know what's working well. Then we need to address the elephant in the room. And those are the things that are not working well. And that's where we have to try to find the solutions and the process, because you know what's not working in your firm. Okay. Manual processes, not even kidding. I was giving a session at QuickBooks Connect, and there was a wicked nice lady in the audience. And I said, how many of you people are printing and mailing tax organizers? And this woman raised her hand. I believe she said 260,000. They've got multiple locations. So it's a very large firm. Think about that manual process, what that person could be doing to help improve processes or doing other things. That's a bottleneck, to be mailing out. And I get some people do it. I'm not judging you. I'm just using it as an example of a manual process. Are you having your clients manually sign the 8879? Why aren't you sending it through a tool like DocuSign or whatever? I don't know, whatever tool you want, right? So thinking about that, why are you having people hand sign it, right? So it's really important as what your process looks like and how these bottlenecks happen, especially when it's manual processes, right? Yeah, no kidding. That postage could fund multiple positions. Agreed. So yeah, Buck, I agree. So it's just, oh, I'm sorry. The lady's giving you a headache. I wish I could stop it. Maybe can I stop it? Oops, nope. That makes me go somewhere. I'm sorry about the lady in the thingy. You'll be all right. We'll be almost done. So just listen to my voice anyway. Inefficient communications. Again, are you using your cell phone? Are you using email? What are you using to communicate, especially specifically between you and your team? And that's really important, to be inside of those tools. The failure to anticipate and address possible issues. So we take a blind eye. I know this process stinks, but you know what? I just don't have time to deal with it. I get that. Over the next 2 months, you won't. But you should document that you had an issue and that there were things, because you know what? You're going to forget. It's kind of like having a baby. You have a baby and then you forget how bad that was. And then you have another one. Like I don't know, something happens in your brain. That's sometimes what happens to us when we're just in the middle of trying to get things done. And we don't want to be reactionary. We want to be proactive. There you go. Got rid of the lady. We want it to not be reactionary. We want it to be proactive. And so some of the other stressors that we can help eliminate, what are our goals and priorities? I can tell you one thing right now. The overwhelm without mindful practices is January is awful. January is awful because you're wrapping up books, you're chasing W-9s, you're trying to reconcile books, you're doing all this stuff, right? And so at the end of the day, if you are proactive, and I know this sometimes requires kind of a little bit more work, but certainly clients that aren't responding to you, that's a whole nother thing. And that's where you got to talk about your ideal client. But having the process in place so that books are reconciled and tied out every single month. You're chasing W-9s. You're looking at the expense by vendor summary, not at just the end of year, but every month as part of your process. We're talking about processes today. Is your process to just, the previous lady ripping her hair out, is that you trying to accomplish the year-end bookkeeping every year? Are you allowing clients to continue coming to you with bad books or coming to you with piles of bank statements and things like that at year end? That, again, we talked in the beginning about the client expectations. We've got to flip the role. What are your expectations of that client? Because your process should be your process, not their. Well, you know what? I'm really, really busy. Well, are you building a business, or are you just trying to survive? Building a business and surviving are two very different things. And so the way I look at it, for me, we're proactive all year, and we set boundaries. This is really important. The goals and priorities are your boundaries, and that's part of your process. Your boundaries are part of your process. So for us, our boundary is in our beginning of tax season process is, here's your engagement letter. We send it out. We use Ignition for that. We send the engagement letter out to people. This year, we made them prepay. Yep, I said it. We made them prepay for their tax returns. If they wanted to work with us, they've got to sign up and pay. They got to sign their engagement letter by February 15th. That is, by the way, a boundary. I've set a boundary. My tolerance is until February 15th. If you're an individual, You have no reason why you can't get me your documents by mid-March at the latest. And I always tell them, I'm like, it's time. Here's where we're going to adult. You're probably responsible for other humans. I know you have kids. So, you know, let's gather our tax documents and get our taxes done. I set a boundary in my process that I'm not doing extensions unless there's an extraordinary circumstance. That's a boundary, but it's part of our process. Sign by February 15th and pay. Okay. Get your documents to us by a certain time. How do they get their documents to us? All those types of things and processes that we really have to have. Okay. As we're going through, we want to work with our team too. This is a team effort. This is not just you. This is you and your team. And I encourage my staff to bring it up to me and be like, you know what, this process stinks, or this client did this. Let's make a note of it. We're going to adjust for it. Is it something we need to address immediately, or is it something that can wait till after tax season? That's our process as far how we evaluate and those types of things. So, and I do tell people, Dennis, you know, as far as obviously, if I'm not preparing a partnership or S Corp, that there's K1s that come, I tell them, I want to prepare everything else in your tax return that you have in your possession, and we'll wait on the K1, but I don't want to be doing an entire return in August, or September, or October ever again. So our process changed because I wanted to take control of what I was doing, right? Dennis, love that. And that's the way it should be, right? And so as we think about that, you got to figure out what your goals are as you're working through here. So building a supportive environment. This is important as you think about, as you go through the next couple of months, through this time, to make change and to commit to it, but have open communication with your team. And if you don't have a team, then open communication with yourself, right? Is that weird? Oh, Holly, I got a great one for that. Discuss the open communication, collaborating with them. Then what we do too is we'll say, okay, this was a challenge. I think we need, like we're talking about Ledger Sync right now. We're not sure if we're going to implement Ledger Sync yet or not, but it's a note in it. We've already taken a note because of retrieving bank statements and some other things. So I'll say, Nicole, I'm going to assign this to you because you're the one who needs the bank statements. Why am I going to tell you, right, how to do whatever it is you need to do? Go find the solution that you need. I don't mind paying for it. So I really realized that, you know, that communication with my team and supporting them in whatever tasks they're trying to accomplish, what is their process? And if the process is broken, I need to help support them in making a change so that we can do that. And so how do I communicate these expectations, which is a really great question, Holly. I appreciate that. So because we use Ignition allows, and you don't need to use Ignition to communicate. I'm not saying that, but our tool allows us up to a 5-minute Loom video to, I don't want to do anything more than 5 minutes, but mine comes close. I set those expectations in a video. It also is in an email and it's in the engagement letter. So there's no way if they're a reader, they read the engagement letter. If they just want to read the email, body of the email, it's in there. Or some people just like to watch the video. They kind of like the video. I kind of joke around with them a little bit. But I set those expectations because I needed to make a change for myself and in my firm. So videos are a great way. If you use Loom, you can always take the Loom video recording and stick it in an email if that's how you communicate, or if you're doing assigning client tasks and things like that right within Financial Sense, you can embed it right into an email or right into a communication and a task, put it right in there, put the video in there as well. So there's a lot of different ways how we can communicate that to clients. I think video is personally the best way. And Dennis argues with himself all the time. I love it. The Loom, yes, LOOM. And there's plenty of them out there. You could use YouTube TV or YouTube Live or whatever. There's all kinds of different ways to record. Ignition happens to use Loom as their preferred tool. And so I happen to use it and it's great. I have it right on my phone. I do a recording. Let's talk about a good process when a new client comes on board. We had one last week. We have to amend 2020 for an S Corp and an individual return. And her quote, and then do 21 through 23. Her quote came to $15,000. So $5,000 for the personal stuff and $10,000 for the business. So before I sent the quote, I had a conversation with her on the phone. Before I sent the quote, I did a video. Listen, understand why the first year, 2020, is more expensive, because I detail every year for them. The first year is more expensive because essentially I'm doing 2 tax returns, because I've got to enter your original return and then amend the return for the corrected books that have been done. So I'm able to explain why the price is so high, that they understand that. And I always put, hey, if you want to jump on another call because you're, whatever, happy to do that as well. It just eliminates the guesswork between me and my clients, which I love, right? So again, that open communication, I always want to make sure I have that with my clients, and video just happens to be one of the best ways for me to do that. So obviously technology, you're going to solve these problems with technology, and that's what's really important. So we're going to embrace technology and automation as we're going through here. Think about automation too. A lot of people are like, well, if I automate, am I going to have people, are people going to be able to still work for me? Is that going to work for me at this point? So automation is not there to steal anyone's job. It's there to make their job easier. Because I find, like with Tracy, for instance, because we have so many things automated, I have her actually putting the client's information into Lacert. She doesn't need, I don't need her to worry about doing anything in a manual way. I want to use her brain to be able to enter information into Lacert, like specifically like a new client. They fill out the organizer. She can go in Lacert and put people's names in there and their addresses and their phone numbers and all of that. She's very intelligent. And then she syncs that client with Smart Vault so that we can have them upload their documents or however we're going to do it. And then the process works for us. But I'm not replacing her. I'm automating things so that she can use her brain and expertise in other ways. So think about, obviously, with embracing technology is just improving efficiency and redundancy. And so if you now, I mean, think about what you're using now. Some people are utilizing technology in some ways, but there's manual other ways. I've been on webinars where people are still today using Excel spreadsheets to track their work. Now, I don't understand who would be using that. And that may be their process now, but I would think for somebody that's using Excel or even a notebook, like I was showing you before, even if they're using this, why wouldn't we move to a different method? My tax partner, for instance, we finally got him into Financial Sense and got him utilizing Financial Sense for his work, as opposed to he would have Lacert open. He's like, well, I know the status of all my returns. They're right here in Lacert. Yeah, but what about the communication and working with them and, having processes? He's like, yeah, I don't really have any. And I'm like, well, we got to fix that for you. So we've been trying to work on that with him. But, and David, I do not use Intuit Link with Lacert. I do not use that. My processes are great. I'm very connected to Smart Vault because I've used it for so long. Everything that happens is right within Smart Vault. And so I want everything to happen in Smart Vault, and that's key, right? So Kathy, yeah, the automation stuff is so confusing. So I will tell you, Kathy, I have all of my workflows up at my website, dawnbrolin.com. There's a thing called a starting lineup, and I use technology and I analyze it the same way I analyze softball. So in softball, this is how I talk about technology. In softball, you have positions on your field, right? You've got a left field, center field, right field, pitcher, catcher, first, second, third, short. We've got all those people that are in those positions. And when you're playing a game of softball and you want to win the game, what do you usually do? You put the best players in those positions, right? Because we want to win the game, just like we want to win this season. We want to win the tax season. We'll call it that for now. You want to win this tax season. It's a competition. You want to win. So in order to win, you got to have those tools and systems in place. Some of it's confusing because one of the key identifiers that when you're dealing with technology is to identify the things within the technology that you have to have. I must have this. I must have that. These are the things that are really painful. So when you go out to look at a solution, you already know if that list of, say, 3 to 6 things that you said it has to do these things, if they don't do one of those 6 things, then that solution is not for you. That's how I try to describe it. So on your softball field, you got the best position. So why wouldn't you have the best technology on your team? So Team Brolin over here, we got Team Kathy, Team Miriam. I love that. You guys have your own teams. You want to stack your tech stack with the best of breed technology that will integrate with each other. Some of them are still coming along. I get that. But having everything in one spot and having that. So if you go to dawnbrolin.com, you click on starting lineup, you will see I need to have a tax software. I need to have permanent document storage. I need a practice management tool. I need a way to pull transcripts because I do a lot of resolution work. I also have some older clients who don't know. They give me copies of things 2 times and miss the other 7 things they were supposed to give me. So I look through their transcripts before I will file their returns. Those are the kind of exceptions that will go on extension because I can't trust they're going to give me everything. So going through that bookkeep is I use to connect to all, I'm going to say e-commerce, but I think it's bigger than that. Anyone who is using PayPal, Square, which by the way, your electricians and your plumbers and those people are all signing up for Square. You don't know it until you look at their bank statements and you see that they have, right? And so bookkeep will actually post those sales properly, which by the way, when you sell something, it's revenue. Don't talk about tax on accrual and cash basis, but it records it properly. So it records the sale when the sale is made, and then it records the money when it actually hits their bank account. So it's really, really good. So that's what I use bookkeep for. And actually bookkeep can take any sales report. So let's say a daily sales report, they can turn it into a file that can be imported into the system, like bowling alleys who have very specific software that they utilize that doesn't interact with anything, just themselves. So just a sidebar on that. But thinking about on that area and looking at that field or that tech stack. So if you print out that tech stack, you can white out all my stuff, white out. Can you remember white out, you guys? I actually think I still have some here because I still do. Someone said they use their worksheets. I still do my work papers, Susan. I still print out the stuff. I use my work papers and I got my red pencil. My red pencil's right here. They're getting shorter. I need some new red pencils. Okay. Yeah. And you got to buy the right ones because some of them you sharpen and they just keep breaking. It makes me very frustrated. Red pencils are important. So anyway, just thinking about how you do that, right? So as we work through the tech stack, we want to embrace that technology and figure out exactly how it's going, right? So improve the efficiency and reduce manual work. The last thing I want is clients come in here to sign 8879s. Because to be honest with you, I like to just do my own thing, right? I like working by myself. My team is all remote. I don't want them coming here and signing an 8879. I just don't want to do it. So how are we reducing that manual work where it includes a human where it is not necessary? They want to meet with me. We can go out, play some pool, have some dinner, whatever, most of the time. So creating those processes and systemizing tasks and take control of your time. Don't let it control you. This is a really good tip as you're moving through the next couple months. Like I said, make sure that you are documenting what is painful for you. And then you just got to figure out, and at the end, I'm going to give you another little tip. You guys will be pumped. Taking control of your time. I calendar block. I am a calendar blocker. I give a certain amount of time during the day. I coach softball. Like today practices at 2. So I got aggressive today and I got in here at 9. That's like crazy for me. I usually come in at 10, but I came in at 9 because I'm like, I got practice at 2, not 3. So I have to, back up my time. But when I come in, I already knew I'm working on this 2 S-Corp tax returns right here. I wanted to get those tax returns done. And I wanted to evaluate the client who just dropped off a bunch of tax returns to see how bad it is, to see what are we going to amend, are we not going to amend or whatever. And so as we go through, I'm blocking and saying I call it internal or in-office tax work. That means I've got clients in my work, by the way, which I'll show you how you filter it. We're going to look at a couple of screenshots, but I take control of my time. I don't let anyone else control my time. So if I know I need 3 hours to just work on in-house tax returns or closing books or whatever you guys do for your work, I block that time and I don't answer my phone. I don't look at my email. I don't do any of that because all I'm doing is getting in and getting my work done and being productive. I do not get distracted. If I'm in here for 4 or 5 hours and I got to get to softball, all I care about is getting my client work done. Whatever that means. That might be meaning getting on a phone call because we have some questions for them, or I needed them to come in for whatever reason. That's still me controlling what I need to do. And so I think that's really important. Okay. So embrace that technology, and process matters. Process matters. Like I gave you that example of the onboarding the new tax client. If I get in the middle of that and I change the process, it all falls apart. And I mean immediately. it falls apart immediately. And you guys know where you where things fall apart too. And I work 6 hours a day because it's softball season, not tax season. So processes are important. Efficiency. When I leave here today for practice, my business is still running. Why? Because people that I sent engagement letters to, Ignition is reminding them. Financial Sense, if there's tasks that I've assigned to people, they're reminding the people. The systems are working for me while I'm out of the office. And then when I come back the next day, I can see what has been completed by either a signed engagement letter or somebody finished a task for us and got us the last bank statement or whatever it may be. That's the way to operate. So really excited about that because I changed my life in 2019 when I started coaching softball because it made me change my processes. I didn't want to be so hands-on. I didn't want to be so involved in the onboarding a client process. I want Tracy to be doing her job, getting people onboarded and doing all of that. And I'm out doing what I need to do. And then I'm working on work when I get in here because I need to be productive, right? So don't be going off script. Again, create checklists, templates. Like I told you, use Rev to document them. Get the process out of your head and into paper or into a phone or just out of here. I wish you could take one of these. I still have these. Are you cracking up? It's a flash drive. I wish you could plug it into my brain. And the systems are all in there. I'm telling you, get them out of there. Get them onto a flash drive and get yourself moving forward. Project management tools, not Excel. If you're there now, we can get you there. And we'll go from, as far as that goes, you got to move yourself to something more automated or at least something more organized. And again, I'm going to show you a few processes there. Invest in employee training, give people the time, continuing education. No, you may not be able to do a lot of that in the next couple of months, but the rest of the year you should. And if you're so proactive and on top of things, you should have time. It's almost like, Friday morning is learning day for 2 hours and then give them the rest of the day off. Like that's what Fridays are for, fun day Friday, right? So it doesn't have to be, after hours or whatever. Again, it's all about you controlling what you can control, which is you and your schedule and your business. That's the critical point here for you guys. So as far as how I use Financial Sense and just think about a simple tax flow. So here's a tax planning workflow that we initiated this year. Where we assigned Nicole was in charge of, accounts are reconciled and ready for tax planning. That was her job. Keith's going to get year-to-date pay stubs, pass serenity tax, all of these things, get comparatives, P&Ls, and balance sheets. And we have them all memorized in a project. Our process is when we have our clients, for business clients, we do a memorized group in QBO, tax planning group. And all of the reports we need to tax plan are in QBO right there. That's a process, folks. This tax season process. So we have it here outlined real well, but what we've done is implement in QBO the reports we need from this screen here. We may pull transcripts. We got to pull transcripts for estimated taxes that they've paid to make sure that they did hit their accounts. We just do a lot of verifying. And we go through here, Keith and Dawn, conversation with client to discuss the conclusions. So Keith and I are on the same page. And you can see in the upper top menu there's team chat. There's 5 communications in this that where we're talking to each other. Hey, this has been done. That's been done. No need to pull transcripts at this time. I think I've got what we need. And now we're really just communicating with each other right within the tool. Now, here's a thing where you can see the different tags, what I call the statuses of the different work. So we're waiting. I had to block out my clients' names, obviously, but I'm waiting on someone's tax organizer. Someone's ready to start. We fired this client. Let's get them out of the deal. We don't have them anymore. Or sometimes they leave. So we just want to tag them. And then Tracy knows when she sees that tag that the client is no longer here, she takes action. So the process is if a client's not coming back, or we either fired them or they're not coming back, and I know this more than she does, I'll mark the status for that client fired. Because in my opinion, whether they leave or I fire them, they're fired. So they're fired. Now she has a report, so you can memorize your work. So Tracy will have a memorized report. I call it memorized report. Okay. A view. So I guess it's called a view. I call it a report, but I'll say, okay, Tracy will have her own. These are mine. So Tracy will have hers and she'll have one of these views to show only the clients that were fired. And then you know what she does? She takes those clients, she goes into our QBO, she goes in financial sense. We mark them no longer a client. We have a process. We archive them. We go through all this. That's what Tracy does. Again, it's her process, which is what we're talking about today. So we save those filtered tags for quick access to reports. And this, for me, my primary one are tax returns ready to start. Because you know what makes me money? Tax returns that are ready to start. I've got people who have already paid me to do their tax return. So now I need to be ready to get the work done. So because I have Dawn Brolin work was just all my work. And then tax returns ready to start. Those are my primary focus because those are the ones I want to be working on. And I can communicate with Tracy on those tax returns. Hey, Tracy, they're missing this 1099-R. Can you please call the client? We do in the chat. Can you please call the client and let them know they need to upload that particular form? I don't have it. And then what we'll do is put the status will change from ready to start to waiting on client and assigned to Tracy. So Tracy knows until I don't want to look at that. I don't want to have that in my view as ready to start if I'm waiting on something. As far as I want to say this is like kind of funny, but they're dead to me at that point. Okay. Like they're until they get me that form, then they come back in right now. And I'm talking about financial sense. This is my actual financial sense where I took out clients' names and stuff like that. So this is where I manage my tax work. And that's what Nicole does. You know, Nicole puts all her bookkeeping work up here and she saves her own view and she manages it. But I can always go in at any time and memorize a view of Nicole's work. So if I want to monitor what she's doing, I got to go see maybe what the status is of one of the clients so I can start the S-Corp return. I don't have to Slack Nicole. I don't have to text or call Nicole. I can just go into Financial Sense, look at her notes, see her communications with the clients and see, oh, maybe I'm going to jump in here because I really want to get this tax return done. I may pick up the phone and be proactive and say, hey, Mike, Nicole's asked you 3 times for that last statement. You're killing me, man. And Nicole always says when I call them, they always react. Like, she's like, they're all so afraid of you. I go, I don't know about they're afraid of me, but I just put it right out there how it is, right? So I'll call them up and I'll say, hey, Nicole's waiting on this. I want to get your tax return done. What are you killing me over here, man? So without me having to communicate with Nicole, and then I'll be able to go into the project that she's working on and say, hey, Nicole, I called the client, blah, blah, blah. He said he'll have it to us by tomorrow. If you don't see it by tomorrow, you let me know because this is not an ideal client. This is not an ideal client if I'm chasing you. And that's where we put in the thing. We want to consider maybe we don't want to work with them again next year. I give them one more phone call after tax season. Listen, you made this tax season really painful, but I really like you. If you can't change and communicate with us on a timely fashion when we need something so we can get your work done, then I don't think we're your ideal firm. I think that maybe we'll, I've got some referrals we can send you to. But again, that's me taking control of my firm, my processes, the way that we operate, not the way they think they want to operate. That's the mindset shift. Then when you have these processes in place, your life will change. Michelle, you're right. Life-changing app. I mean, Financial Sense has been awesome. And I really like the fact that it's all full transparency. You can see what each other are doing or not. You can, do some restricting things. But at the end of the day, to have your workflow, for me to come in here and go, I wonder who has their tax documents uploaded. Let me go look through Smart Vault to see if everyone's uploaded their. Why in the world would I do that? So I ask you that question. What are your processes when it comes to workflow and getting things from clients? And are you sending them through a system where they're coming back in securely, which is also super important? Are you working with applications that integrate? And I think that that's another key factor as we think about. And someone said to me, would you talk a little bit about your tech stack? And I know that's something everyone really loves to talk about. And this is my starting lineup right here. I call it a home run tech stack. I'm all about hitting a home run, or maybe even a nice bunt execution is good with me. I like it. So, but looking at these are the people on the left: the practice management, client management, document storage, payroll processing. Oh my goodness, right? As far as that goes, I just want to have everybody in one place. I don't want to have to go out to QuickBooks and I want to go over to Gusto and then I got to go over to this place and I got to go to that. That is so inefficient. That's not a great process. So our business clients are required to be an ADP. That's just, again, I'm setting boundaries. And when I'm working on an S Corp tax return and I want to make sure I double check the owner's, the officer salaries, that the line item in QuickBooks on the P&L shows officer salary and there's 3 partners or 3 shareholders, I want to go in, pull those W-2s to make sure that that number's right. That's called due diligence. I don't want to have to ask for that stuff. I want it to be there. Now, Nicole, because again, we have a process. When she's done with the bookkeeping for an 1120S, she also uploads all of the W-2s and the payroll records in case I have a question. So I don't really have to go look for them, but that's Nicole's process. Again, process, process, process. If it's broken, it's not going to be working, right? And so Smart Vault is a permanent document storage, okay? It is not meant to be a practice management tool. It's not meant to necessarily be anything like that. For me, it has all, but Smart Vault is the end all be all. We still get information and documents from Financial Sense. We just drag and drop them into, well, actually, Financial Sense has an integration now. So that's a whole nother conference. You got to talk to Financial Sense about it because it's a whole nother level. But those documents will go into Smart Vault and then you can drag and drop them and move them where you want them to be. But that's where the permanent document storage is in Smart Vault. My tax returns, my work papers, the bookkeeping folders, loans that are tied out, all that stuff. I personally have that all in Smart Vault. Financial Sense helps me retrieve them if a client wants to do it through Financial Sense. We request maybe a bank statement or something, that's fine. But especially for bookkeeping, but they have the ability to upload right to Smart Vault if they want. But Financial Sense allows us to request things from them as well. You have to, again, and lots of these technologies do overlap because you've got Lisio, which I use for client communications. I don't store documents there. They still go into Smart Vault. Financial Sense is meant to be my practice management tool. Yes, we do get things back from clients. Those go right into Smart Vault. Smart Vault is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a permanent document storage. It works so phenomenally with my Lacert software. I couldn't see myself ever changing from it. So I just want to kind of show you this. And then I wanted to show you the playing field because the playing field is what's most important is where are they integrating? So I use Lacert for my tax software because Lacert prints directly to Smart Vault. ShareFile does not work with Lacert. I mean, it doesn't work with Lacert in a direct integration. ShareFile is like a standalone portal. They don't print directly to it, which is a whole really good workflow that I have, where I print my tax returns from Lacert into Smart Vault, and then I send my 8879s out of Smart Vault through DocuSign, and that DocuSign comes right back into Smart Vault. I never touch it more than once. When we get a new client, everything goes into Lisio, which then flows into Financial Sense, which flows into QBO, which flows into Ignition, all these things so that we're not entering people in multiple places. And so that can be very frustrating. We are just started working with Dex pretty closely. They're not actually represented on here yet, but we're working with them on receipts. I got audited and I didn't have a lot of meals receipts. Thankfully, I had a cool auditor and she was like, no change, Brolin, we're good. And so I found the urgency of getting receipts from clients and from myself, for my own firm, for my couple of businesses that I have, and then from my clients. So we've been using Dex as well. And yes, Dex, people can also upload and share with Dex as well. The key is to find what works best for you and your firm before you start, like as you start going and making decisions. You've got to do that. Okay. So just think through. I know I've given you a lot. Yep. And Zapier. Yep. Zapier works really well to help with that as well. Pat, I will print a copy of a paper return for a client. I think I print 2 a year. Most of them, they got it. Like I had a client in here this morning do a tax return and I was like, you don't need these, right? Lorraine, she's like, well, why would I? Go, that's exactly the right answer, sister. And so I scanned all her stuff, got it all up in Smart Vault, and they're in the shredding pile right now. I wanted to give you this other thing that I wanted to point out because this 3-day challenge doesn't have to stop after 3 days. The conversation can continue. And that was one of the things that I found frustrating is I give a lot of webinars, a lot of in-person training, and the conversation stops at the end of the training. So what I created was something called Dawn's Dugout. Again, that's me and my dugout at my team's dugout. And so I now started something. Actually started last May, Dawn's Dugout. You can come to the dugout. We just had one yesterday. Come come and talk and ask questions and do all those kinds of things. So you can scan to register or just go to dawnbrolin.com. And I do it from 2 to 3. It's a Monday. Usually it's the first Monday unless there's a holiday. And yes, I'm crazy enough to do it during this season because I want to help people continue this conversation, help you keep your mindset strong. Even if you just need encouragement, come to the dugout. That's what I'm there for. I'm the designated motivator to fire you up, to help you make these changes. Okay. So 2 to 3 Eastern time, 4 to 5. I give 2 different time slots. People come. It's great. It's a good conversation. I want to help all of you be successful. And so as you're going through, I know there's a lot of great comments and questions and things in here. Let's see. Do I send K1s? Once the K1s are done, once I'm done, I encourage the business owner, that's the tax, the tax matters partner. They're in charge of getting the K1s to people. I make them do that. So, and for the most part, the ones that we prepare, we are their preparer, their individual preparer as well. So at the end of the day, that works pretty well too. Yes, the solutions have a cost associated with them that can add up, Amy. You're 100% correct. An ideal amount of revenue to start implementing all these. I hope that this makes sense to you. There's certain tools that you have to have, right? Implementing a project management from the beginning is going to save you a lot of hassle later down the road. Practice management is critical from the beginning of a practice to start getting those workflows nailed down. Because in order to grow, you don't want to grow real big and then all of a sudden be like, oh, I need a system. I have so many clients. I don't even know how to keep track of everything. So I would encourage you. I think practice management is critical. Obviously, you're deciding on your accounting software is critical. And then getting those systems and workflows down, that's what a practice management tool is going to do. Is very, very important. Markup work papers inside Financial Sense. I don't do that. I print out all my stuff and mark them all down, and then I scan a big packet and put it back in Smart Vault. That's how I do it. I'm not sure. Maybe if you have Adobe DC, you probably can, Debbie, markup work papers instead of Financial Sense. And that might be just a question for Tosin. Do I use Liscio or Financial Sense for client tasks requests? For the tax side, I use Liscio. For the bookkeeping side, we use Financial Sense. And so because Liscio has this new great organizer functionality and features that we found to be phenomenal, but we use Financial Sense for those other types of requests for bookkeeping specifically. But anyway, we're out of time. I'm actually over by a minute. I'm so sorry, but you got the dugout. You can always come and see me, but you better be here for Kellie Parks tomorrow. Make sure you're here tomorrow at noontime Eastern time with Kellie Parks. And then Kellie and I are going to be on fire on Thursday together at noon to continue the conversation. So thanks you all for being here. I hope this was helpful to you. I really care about you and what happens to you in your future. So I wish you the best. I hope to see you again on Thursday. Take care, everybody.